put into everything that you see here that's it's in kind of the manila looking color. That's going to be in glue chip like we did on the other two. So if you haven't watched the other two, you might give them a whirl. They've got more information than this one has as far as the tools and things like that to use. So anyway, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to determine how wide to make this. Now, I've already drawn the pattern, so obviously I've already figured that out, but I'm going to show you how I got to that dimension. It turns out it's going to be 6 3/4 wide. So to get that, we're going to put 3 solar lights in it. We're going to set them in a triangle like this. These are the stake tops for the garden stakes that you put out. They have a small light bulb and they have a rechargeable battery in them. We're going to put 3 of these in top of this. That'll give it a nice bright light, and we'll put a bottom in this unit also, so we'll get some bounce back from it, since these are kind of a direct point light system. They charge by day. It has a photocell in here that turns them on at night, so we can light this thing up when it gets dark. So to figure out how wide to make this, here's how we're going to do this. Have a sheet of paper here. We're going to take a little T-square here, and we're just going to draw a straight line like that. Then we're going to take our solar lights. We're just going to do them upside down, and we're going to put them in here, right here, about 1/8 of an inch above our line. We'll put all 3 of them in here. Just hold them down, and we're going to draw just a half circle line around here. Don't let it move though, like that. So this gives us our outside perimeters here. So we'll put our T-square back on here. And we're going to take a 60-degree triangle. This one has a little lip on it. It's about 1/8 of an inch away, so that's perfect. So we're going to slide it right up to the line of the solar light. And then we're going to slide it on out about 1/8 of an inch. And we're going to take and draw a line down. And then we're going to take and we're going to move it over here, and we're going to do the same thing over here. Didn't get that one quite high enough. So now we've got 3 equal sides here. So we'll take our ruler and we'll put it in here, and we'll measure this. And it comes out to be 6 3/4 inches. So that's how wide each of the panels will be. So what we're going to do, we're going to move this away. We're going to start to create a form to build this in. Since we want all 3 of these panels to be exactly the same size, and we're going to do copper foil. Sometimes things get a little bit start to want to grow when you do copper foil. It also wants to grow when you do leaded, but more so with the copper foil, because it has to be ground real tight, these pieces. So as I said, this one's going to be more difficult than the other 3 that we did. The first one we did was really easy for beginners. Then the next one was a little bit harder, and then the next one was a little harder, and this is the hardest one of all. So we'll go offline, we'll get ready to set up, and we're going to create a form. I'll show you how we're going to do that. And then we'll set our pattern in, and we'll get ready to cut some glass on it. This one does have some interesting glass cuts on it, especially right here and here. These inner cuts here are going to create a problem. If you don't, they're going to require actually a glass saw to saw these out. If you don't have a glass saw, the easiest way for you to make this project is to break it up and put more cut lines in it. Otherwise, bring a cut line across here, and then bring one across into here to get away from these inside lines. In our case, we're going to use our glass saw, and we're going to cut these. We'll cut these out of one piece of glass. There's another one right here that does that same thing, creates an inner cut. Sometimes these you can take and cut across here with some eyelashes and pop that out, and then take a grinder and get in here and grind that. Up here, this one here also creates a problem. This is okay up here, but this part right here is a problem. Here's a problem right here. So if you're going to try to do a pattern similar to this, all you can do is you can just go ahead and create new break lines in it so that you don't have those inner cuts on it. The problem with doing a lot of brake lines in it is it kind of breaks up your pattern a little bit. But for a solar lantern, it's going to be outside. After it's all together, no one will ever know what you did to it. So we're going to go offline and we'll get ready to set up our form. And then we'll go ahead and we'll get ready to build this project. All right, we're back. We're going to get ready to build our form now. And so we've already determined now that it's going to be 6 3/4 inch wide. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take a square of some kind. I'm going to use an old-fashioned carpenter square here. I'm going to set up against my backstop on my work table here and just lay it down flat. And then I'm going to take some small wooden form pieces here. These have been cut out of a piece of 3/4 inch pine. I put them on the table saw, set my gate at like a 1/4 inch, and just push these through to create these little form pieces. You can see from the looks of these have been used a lot. Probably have made a couple hundred of these things over the years. So we're going to set this in with our header piece right here. Our header piece will be where we're going to start to build, and we're going to build it out. We're actually going to build this out upside down. It'll be sitting here like this. This will be how it'll be built. We'll have a header across the top. The header is going to be like this. It's going to be a piece of pink glass. It's going to be opaque, so that'll hide our solar lights. So the solar lights are going to sit in here so you won't see these on the finished product. So that way, when it's hanging, all you'll see is this header. You won't see the fact that has a solar light underneath it. So it'll kind of hide that area for us. So anyway, what we're going to do, we're just going to take some small wire brads here, push this up nice and tight right here, and we're just going to take and tack this down. We're building on a homozoic board, so we're going to use push pins to create this project. And we're going to put one more right here at the end. All right, we're going to take one of our down pieces, which is the longer ones here. I'm going to stick them in here, and we're going to slide this over. And you'll notice we have a notch cut right here. That's where we're going to put our hanger in here. And if you watch some of my other videos, you'll notice that I use a hanger idea that I created. Basically uses a steel-plated, zinc-plated cotter pin, and I'll show you how we're going to bend those to make them fit in here. And it goes underneath the cane, so it kind of hides. I've been using them for about 20, 25 years. Never had one fail yet. Got started using them when we lived in Arizona. There's a lot of wind in Arizona. I always concerned if they were going to, if I just soldered a ring or something on the edge, that they might come loose and break it. So anyway, we're going to put this in here. We're going to make sure this is up at 90 degrees right here, nice and straight. We're going to take and we're going to tack this down. Push it up against your square. And we'll put one more right here at the top. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so now we need to be 6 3/4 back this way. So we're going to take our square and we're going to pull it back out, move it over, push it down. As you can see, that's real tight. Okay, so we've got our other down piece right here. So we're going to bring this over, take our square or our ruler, and we're going to look for 6 3/4. Wow, that's almost right there. Just got to go a little bit further out. Six and 3/4 there. 6 3/4 there. That's what we want right there. So we'll go ahead and we'll put this down. So this will create our straight form that we're going to build inside of this. And we're going to do a combination of leaded glass and copper foil. It's going to have lead came around the outside edge. It'll have the U-shaped came around the outside edge. It's going to have one H came across here to create our header. And then the rest of it's going to be copper foil. So there's a couple little tricks when you're doing the copper foil and the lead together. And I'll show you what we're going to do with that. All right, there we go. So now I'm going to go offline. I'm going to cut some U-cane to go in here, and I'll show you how we're going to make our hanger, and then we're going to show you how we're going to fill this in. And so we'll be right back. All right, we're back. Went ahead, I cut all the U-cane for us. We're going to be using a 7/32 across the crown here, and they're about 9 1/4 inches long. That's going to be how long the project's going to be. And they've all cut one end of them at a 45-degree angle, so you can take a look and see what that looks like right there. I cut all 6 of them because we're going to make 3 of these panels, so we need 6 pieces of that. Our header piece, this is the one that's going to go across the top now. Here again, the same cane. They're cut on 45 on both ends. Here's the other end here. And this end here, you notice we made a notch in it right here. The notch, what that's for is that's for where our hanger is going to go. And I'm going to show you real quick how we're going to make the hanger to go in there. These are the cotter pins we're going to use. They're steel zinc plated. They're 3/32 by 1.5 inches long. And to make these into a hanger, take a pair of long nose pliers and stick it right inside the loop here. See if I can hold this up here so we can see this from the camera here. And I have a small piece of tubing here. This piece of tubing is 3/32 across the opening right here. And it slides on the longest leg of the cotter pin. And you just pull this up to 90 degrees. Just like that. Okay. We'll do the other 2 real quick too. So take and put your pliers into the loop. Slide your tubing on here, come up here to a 90 degree. If you go over, you can always bring it back a little bit. There you go. And we'll do the last one here so everybody can kind of get a good view how to do this. Okay. Now the reason we're bending this to a 90 degree, this is going to go underneath the U-cane there at the top. Okay, that's not quite 90. There we go. Now, our header glass is going to go up in here. I've already cut it. And I've taken my grinder here. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I ground this back down here just a little bit. And this cotter pin is going to sit right like that in here. And it'll go down in here. The reason you grind that back is if you put this on top of your header, that's going to make this side longer than this side, and your project will start getting crooked as you go. And as you build out, it gets worse. So you want to remember to grind this back a little bit. If you don't have a grinder, you probably shouldn't be even trying to do this job. But if you want to give it a try, what you can do is you can use it like this. Take one of these cotter pin legs and cut it into like 4 little pieces. A little piece of white glue and just tape one here and tape one here to make this stay straight. And that works pretty good. So anyway, the way this works is we're going to take our header piece right here, and this slides in right like this, like that. And then we take our first down piece, we set it in here like this, and this goes in there right like that, comes down against it. We're going to take a couple stick pins, and we're just going to put one right here at the end. And we'll come down to this side here and we'll do the same thing. And that's going to be our hanger right here. Hopefully you can see where that's going to be. So I said there's a couple tricks here when you're going to marry copper foil and leaded glass or leaded cane together. One of them is, if you look at the edge of the cane, the channel where the glass goes has this gap right here. And if you look at it from this side here, you can see that it's about, pretty good, almost a full 1/16 of an inch up off the base. So you need to put on your pattern, you need to put something underneath your pattern to make it come even with that, because otherwise when you start to build, you'll have your U-shape came here, and then your glass will fall away because it won't have that same gap. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pattern and we're going to take it, we're going to pull these pins back out. We're going to take our pattern and we're going to slide it down inside underneath this, underneath the U-came here. And I marked a line where our header is going to be right here. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to mark right along here. I'll push this up here. I'm going to mark right along here. All right, I'm going to go offline real quick and I'll take and cut that out. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to put that back in there. Just pull it out. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So we went ahead and cut that up like we want it. So this is our pattern, or what we're going to build on, and now it fits in between our cane instead of underneath it. But in itself, it's not thick enough to make up the difference between the thickness of the edge of the U-cane. So if you're familiar with this, this is called chipboard. It's found on the back of tablets and things like that. It's a little thicker. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a glue stick and we're going to glue this pattern down to it. So we'll move it over here and we'll glue this down. So I'm going to move over here real quick and I'll just put some glue stick on here and we'll go ahead and put this on. Okay, so I've glued the chipboard onto our design pattern here. So now it's a little bit thicker. So now it's pretty close to equaling the difference in the lip on the U-cane. So we won't have a situation where our glass will start to make a concave in the center here. So now we're going to take this, we're going to put our U-cane back in here, and we're going to take this, take our glue stick right here, just put some glue in here. We're going to line it right up on this line right here. This is where our header piece of H-cane is going to go, and we'll line it up nice and straight. And we'll go ahead and push that right down just like that. Take a little piece of masking tape here. And we'll run it right across the back here just to hold that for good. Okay, we can put our pins back in here. Now we're getting ready to go ahead and build this. So we're going to put our header in here, and then we're going to have a piece of H-cane right here, and then we're going to go ahead and start to create and cut the pieces for this. So remember, all these pieces that have no color on them are going to all be glue chip. And glue chip is a type of glass. I'll show you what it looks like. You're probably very familiar with it. It's used for the background on all kinds of projects, and it's one of the most popular. It's fairly inexpensive, so people like to use a lot of it. So we'll be back in a minute and we'll get ready to put our header in here. All right, we're back. We've got everything all ready to go here now. We've got our pattern all down with its backing on it, so it's kind of even with our inside of our H-cane here. So now we're going to put our header in here. The header is going to consist of two pieces of glass. It's a piece I just cut right in half here. On some previous videos you may have seen where I just lay a piece of crown across here and solder it. Because this one's getting so much bigger, I'm going to use a piece of H-cane across the whole thing. So this is the one with the notch in it. So the notch goes in here right like that. You take a piece of H-cane, makes the letter H. It's going to go in here like that. And then this one here is going to go in here like that. And then you take another piece of H-cane, and it'll go across the top here. Get it down in here. There we go. And we'll just take a couple pins and we'll we'll pin it. Now when you put that H-cam in there, you want to be sure that this pattern here is down below that. So let's take and mark that with a pencil, or we'll mark it with a pen, and we'll make sure that that's down below there, because if it's not, that's going to kick that up and give us a problem as we go along here. So let's take a mark right up against the edge here, and we'll take a look at it and see. Nope, it's going to be fine. So you just want to check that, so you don't want to create a ramp right there for that to go. Okay, so now we've got our header in there. This will be where our solar lights, when it's all done, will sit in here like that. They'll be facing down, and then, as I said, we're going to have a bottom in it, so they'll give a kind of like a reflective little box right in here. So we'll put 3 of these in the top of this unit right here. So from here now, we're ready to go ahead and we're going to cut our glue chip. And I'll get a pattern piece here and we'll get ready to do it. Okay, we're back. So we're going to get ready to cut a piece of glass for our project. This is the glass we're going to use for the clear area. This is a glue chip, has a textured glue chip side on it. This is the smooth side. This is the side we'll cut on. So we turned our pattern over, so when the right side's up, it'll be right reading. I marked these lines on here when I buy the glass originally on a parent size sheet, which is a large sheet. I always mark it so that we know that's kind of the direction of it. This doesn't really have a real direction to it, but it can sometimes, if you turn it a little bit, you get a different look to it. And if you build everything going this way and then one piece is like this, when you hang it up, sometimes you can see that, and it doesn't look quite right. So we're just going to put our glass down here. We've got our pattern piece right here. It's on the sticky back paper. So you have to take and you have to peel the backing off of it. That sometimes is a trick. There we go. So this is our pattern. It has the sticky side on it right here. We're just going to stick, and we're going to just take and stick this down here. Just like that. Now, because this has got a couple inner cuts to it, this circle here, we're going to leave this long over here because give it some strength, because this is an easy cut. It's just a straight cut. So we'll leave that one long. We're going to use an oil-fed cutter. This one here is one I like. It's got a big enough grip for my hand. It has a cutting tip on the end here. It has oil in the side of it here. And when you push down on it, it actually puts a little bit of oil on the tip. Works quite well. So we're just going to cut these straight edges to start with. Well, first of all, we're going to take and cut this right here. Just get some of this excess glass out of here. So we're going to do this one right here first. We're just going to come in here. You don't have to push real hard. We take our running pliers and we'll stick it right in here. Pop that out. This one here is a little trickier because it's a little tighter. So it goes from here to here. You could use a tapping method. I think we could be able to take a running pliers and get that out of there, but it'll go real slow here. Okay, we'd pop that out. Okay, we can come back and we'll grind that up. So now we can go ahead and finish the rest of these cuts now. Cut that one. This one here. Hope I've got this where you can see it. Now for this straight one here, you could go ahead and just free cut that if you wanted to. I'm going to take a ruler here, and I'm going to come back here right just a little bit back, because you remember the cutting wheel is in between these two legs, so I'm going to come back here And I'm just going to take and make this a straight cut right here. So there's our piece, kind of rough cut right now. So now I'm going to go over on the grinder and I'll take and match this up to our pattern piece. And when we come back, we'll show you how the final fit's going to look. Okay, we're back here. We took our little piece of glass that we cut here. We've dressed up all the edges of it here. And so this is our piece. It's going to go right in here. So it'll go right in here. We'll take and copper foil that. And that's the way we'll just continue to build these pieces out with the glue chip. And then when we come back, we'll start to cut some colored glass and put in here. So we'll be back in a little while. All right, we're back. We got all our pieces cut for our first panel here. So we've got all our flowers cut in here, and they're all ground and fit real nice. Got two colored leaves here. Here's our brown for our tree trunk or for our limb. And so everything sits in here real nice and tight. So the next project we're going to need to do is we need to copper foil each one of these pieces. And if you're not familiar with copper foil, we're going to wrap the outside edge of each one of these with the copper foil. And it looks like this. It's a very thin copper foil. It's got an adhesive back on it. You just put your fingernail in here and you pull the back away from it. Like that. Try to keep your fingers off of the adhesive if you can. So we're going to take one of our pieces of glass that we cut. This one's going to be one of the pieces for our project. We're going to set it in here, and I like to try to set it right in the center of the copper foil. I'm going to put a board over here so it gets a little bit easier to see it here, I think. Put this board over here. So here we're going to take this now, and I'm going to pull that tape down. I'm going to set this right in the center of the glass. I'm going to take and line it up there. I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to run it across it. Then I'm going to take and push over the edges of it here. If you're new to copper foil, it's one of those things where it's going to just take you a little while to get a technique down. The hardest part is to keep it in the center of the glass. And so that takes a little while to learn how to do that. Mostly it's just done by eye. But you want to be able to keep an eye on it as you're trying to get it lined up here. Keep pushing it down against the edge of the glass. Bring it up to the end here. Take a pair of scissors and just go ahead and trim this off. Bring your edge back around. And go ahead and finish it off right there. Okay, so now push this edge down all the way around. Take your fingernail, run it in here real quick, push this down. The inner circle, the inner cuts like this are the hardest ones to copper foil. They always want to kind of pull away because you're making the tape go into an inner circle, which it doesn't like to do. Okay, after you've kind of worked this all down by hand, you're going to take your burnishing tool. It looks like this is the same tool that we used to spread the cane earlier, but on the back side it's got a little slanted area on it. And you just take it down on a table work surface here, and you just take your burnishing tool and you just set it in here, and you push this down real tight. And as you push this down, you go ahead and you move right along here, push it down. Then you move to the edge and you burnish the edges all down. You want to get these down nice and tight, and you want to be sure that you've got them as close to the edge on each side as you can possibly make them. As you push this down, you'll see it smooth out against the glass. And that's what you want to have it look like when it's done right here. So that'll give you the first piece, and we'll be ready to go. So we're going to go off camera, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to do all the rest of the pieces in our project right here. This piece right here goes right in here. Now, one other thing, because we're running this lead came down the side here, one of the other things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to pull some of these pieces out of here, because this is going to tuck back underneath here. If you were just making this straight, all copper foil, you could just take and push this straight down in here, but because it goes inside the U-came here, you're going to have to take some of these pieces out. So a good way to do it is either take a little piece of masking tape and go across and tape them together so they don't get lost. If you take these all out and don't have them marked or taped together somehow, it's going to become like a jigsaw puzzle, and you'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly where they all go back. So I recommend just kind of taping them down a little bit, since you're going to have to take them out. We'll go out and we're going to copper foil all of these outside edges first, and then we're going to come and fill in the center. As you add copper foil or even lead, the project does start to grow a little bit, even though you maybe use your pattern shears to cut out a gap for the heart. So that we can take and make a little final grind on some of these pieces if we need just a little bit more room for our copper foil. So we'll come back in a minute, and we'll get this all copper foiled up, and then we're going to go ahead and solder it. Then we'll go off camera. We're going to make 2 more, and then we'll go from there. All right, thank you for watching. All right, we're back. We got everything all copper foiled now, so you can see it wrapped up real nice. So now we're going to get ready and we're going to solder this up. And we're going to solder both sides of it. But since we're mixing not only copper foil but the lead came together, on the lead, I like to take a small stainless steel brush like this one here and come in and just hit the joints that we're going to solder here real quick. Knocks off any oxidation that may have accumulated while we've been working on the project. Just knock that off like that. And then we're using a liquid flux here. It's water soluble. This one here doesn't smoke and it has no odor to it. So we're just going to take and flux our solder joint areas. So then we'll put some flux on our copper foil. If you miss a spot, the solder won't adhere to it. It just kind of balls up a little bit. So kind of make sure you go over the whole thing here. With a small project like this, if you want to, you can go ahead and just put flux on the whole thing. If you're doing a bigger project, I'd probably recommend maybe just fluxing part of it and then coming back and adding more a little bit later. But for the smaller project, we're just going to do the whole thing. And the first solder we're going to put down, we're going to solder up the cane part first. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to kind of spot solder some of the intersections for the copper foil. And then we're going to come back in. We'll probably run a kind of a real flat bead all over the whole thing. And then we'll probably come back in and put a finishing bead on it. The solder iron we're using, this is the one we talked about in the other videos. It's the Waller 100 watt. It has a 700-degree tip on it. If you're doing a straight copper foil, you could probably go to an 800-degree tip. It's a little bit hotter. The solder flows pretty fast with the 800. But since we're mixing these together, if you put an 800-degree tip against the lead, it'll burn right through it really, really quick. And then you kind of got a problem. So we'll stay away from that. So we're going to get ready to go here. I usually just take a little piece of lead U-cane like this, and I run my iron over it just real quick. Make sure that I don't have a heat spike in it where it might be a little hotter than I want it. So we're ready to solder. Now, the solder comes in a 1-pound roll. I usually just take and cut off 3 or 4 links about 12 inches long, because I like to hold the solder down real flat against the project. So in the project right here, we can just take and put our soldering iron right here, and we'll just hold it right just like that. And we just solder in some of these joints real quick here. Kind of keeps things from moving around. And on these joints right here, we're just going to put our iron on an angle, and we're just going to come right across there like that. So that solders those right up against there like that. Now you could build this a little different if you wanted to. You could build this without the lead came around the outside edges, go ahead and just build a copper foil, the whole thing copper foil, and then come back in and add the U-came to it later on. So that's another way you could do this. But in this case here, we've started out with the U-came around the outside, and we're just going to go ahead and we're going to continue with that. I found that works out good, especially since we're building it in a form. And we need 4 of these exactly like this, or 3 of these, I'm sorry, 3 of these exactly like this. If you free build them, just a copper foil and add the lead to them, you could get some that are a little bit different sizes. And then when we go to put them together in our form, which we're going to put them in together on a 60-degree triangle area, you're going to end up with a problem where they don't fit just right. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and tack this just a little bit more in here. And this first little go around with the solder doesn't have to look pretty. You're just kind of putting some joints down here to kind of hold everything in place. If you've got your glass pretty tight and your copper foil is pretty tight, everything's pretty much held in place already, but this will just kind of assure that it doesn't move on us. So we'll just keep moving around here. Get in here and hold the center in here so it doesn't rotate around a little bit. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll see that the copper foil one is the most difficult one to do. The other copper foil one we did with the modern day flowers, it's not as hard to do as this one, but this one's going to be harder because it has all these little flower blossoms in it. So you might want to experiment with that one. And you can put any pattern in here you want. I mean, I just happened to pick this one. This is out of a pattern book that I had. I just put it on the computer and blew it up. So we're going to tack the rest of these down right here. All right. If you're going to solder a long bead, you just kind of put your iron down and just pull it along the edge here like this. Just let it go on through. You can kind of work with the solder bead. I kind of like to try to keep it all about the same amount as far as the size goes of it. Try to make it as smooth as possible. And this is one of these things where copper foil, you'll get a soldering technique where you'll learn how to do it the way you like to do it. There's a lot of videos on YouTube on copper foil, how to do it. Take a look at some of those. If you see some of the ways that they do it that you like, go ahead and give it a try. After a while, you'll develop your own system of doing it. I kind of like to take it like this and just walk along with it. And just draw your iron back and pull it apart. It comes out nice and smooth. So right now what we're going to do, we're going to go offline. I'll go ahead and solder up this front side, and then we'll turn it over and we'll solder up the back side, and then we'll come back on and I'll show you how it looked. All right, we've got the front side all soldered up. Came out nice for us. So here's what it's going to look like here. Then we have to still do the back side here. And even though this back side, you're not going to see it because it's going to be inside the solar light. This is a great side to do, and you can use it for practice as far as getting the back side done. So anyway, this came out very nice, and I think it's going to make a great looking lantern for us. So I'm going to go off camera, and we're going to do we'll do the back side here. And then when I come back, we're going to finish up these corners, and we'll finish up here, and we'll solder around our hanger, and we'll be almost done with this particular panel, and then we'll get ready to make the rest of them. So to solder the back side, I'm just going to put it back in our form and just push it down here and go over it with our flux, and we'll go ahead and solder it back. The only thing I'm not going to do, along the edge here, I'm going to leave these open. I'm not going to put them together because, remember, we're going to put this on an angle, and the other panel is going to sit in here on a 60-degree angle like this. If you solder these and you have a little blob of solder right there, when the two come together, instead of making a nice sharp edge right here, it'll make it push it out a little bit, and then it'll give you a gap between the two panels, and we don't want to have that. So don't solder these areas right here, or here and here and here. If you want to solder those later, after we get ready to put them back together, you can come back in with your iron and solder those when it's all put together. So we'll be back after we get the back done, and then we're going to put a cleat across the top here to hold our little shelf for our solar light. And on the bottom, we're going to put another little plate that'll hold our bottom, because we're going to put a reflective bottom in this, so that when this is all lit up, it'll be more even as far as the lighting goes on it. So we'll be back after we get this done, and we'll show you how we're going to finish up these edges, and then we'll move on. Okay, so we're back. We've got the back soldered now. So we've got this is the back side. This is the front side. I kind of cleaned it up a little bit. And so now we got a couple other things we're going to do here. First of all, we're going to put a cleat right across here. This will be to hold a little shelf that'll hold our solar light. And we're going to put a tab on the bottom. But before we put the tab on the bottom here, we're going to do something with these two ends, and I'll show you what we're going to do with them. So I'm just going to put a little piece of my form wood right here. Let's turn this over on the back side. And so we're going to get ready to put our cleat on here. And our cleat is just going to be a piece of H-came, and we're just going to solder it on its edge right here. And the way we're going to do that, so I'm going to take a pair of, these are medical clamps. Somebody gave me these a long time ago, and I'm just going to put this right at here. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. I'm going to take and put this clamp down on here and just clamp this shut so it holds it for me. You could do that with an alligator clip or any kind of device that you have that could hold it, a little clamp. Put some flux on both sides of it. Take your iron. You can see this iron's already got just a little blob of solder on it right there, so that's perfect. We're going to take this. I'm going to try to do this so it's so you can see what I'm doing with this. So this is going to go right here, and we're going to solder the two pieces of cane together. I'm going to take that little blob of solder and I'm going to stick it right in here underneath where the two pieces of cane come together, and just let it flow off of there. Okay, then after I get that done, I'm just going to take my clamp out, and I'm going to take my soldering iron, and I'm going to go right here, put a little solder on it, and I'm going to put it right in here. And it's going to move right along the edge here and solder this all the way down here. If you wanted to, you could probably just put a couple spot solder joints on here. I usually just like to close it up, just to close the solder the whole thing. Okay, so that takes care of the cleat for that. So I just wipe this off just a little bit. One thing I usually do when we get here, this one here kind of raised up right there, so we'll fix that. Just put some pressure on it, just push it back down. Really wouldn't have hurt anything because it's going to be underneath our shelf anyway, but just to get that pushed down. So that's our cleat for our shelf to hold our solar light in here. So the solar light will sit on a little shelf to sit it in here just like this. So it'll be down underneath our header across here, so nobody will see the solar lights at all. These edges get a little bit sharp, so I usually just take my shears here, my lead shears, and just cut them at a little 45s here. Okay, now in this end here, we've got a couple open ends. So there's a couple things we can do. One, we could just cut them off short and leave them open, or we can cut them off short and solder them. Or we're going to do what I'm going to do with them. I'm going to take and cut this at about 1/4 inch back right here. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just cut this on an angle here. And I'm going to cut this to a point. Then I'm going to take this on my workbench and I'm just going to push this down. And what that does is that fills up that hole right there. So when I get ready to solder it, it won't become a problem trying to get it to flow in there. So we'll do the same thing over here. This one here is already a little bit short, so we'll just cut it in here. Just trim that back a little bit. Take it on its edge. Pull it back and forth. So we got our edges down here where we want them. So we're going to solder around our cotter pin here, which is our hanger. And this end here is where the 45s came together. You can see it has a little bit of a slot right here. So to do that, we're going to need some way to keep this upright. And I'm going to use a drill vise. This is one I've had for a long, long time. And I'm just going to insert our panel right here. And when I apply a little bit of pressure to it, I'm not going to apply enough pressure to break our glass. I'm going to take some flux, put right here on these two corners, wipe my iron off, and just set some in here and just take and let it flow right into that right there, just like that. Now those look fine. I'm going to take it on some 80 grit sandpaper and I'm going to knock those down smooth so you don't see those at all. And now on the other side here, we need to fill this gap in. So I'm going to put this on a little bit of an angle. I'm going to move this over here so you can see it. Right here is where we're going to solder. We're just going to put a little bit of solder a little flux right here, and then we'll take and solder that shut. There we go. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn it around the other way. And this is where our cotter pin is going to be, or this is where our see if I can get this in here so it's a little more stable. Get this where you can see what we're doing here. I'm going to set this, move it down here. Okay, so we're going to take and we're going to put our flux around our cotter pin right here. And for this, just take your iron, put it on an angle, put a little solder on the tip, and just set it in here and just let it sit there until it just flows off the iron, just like that. We'll do it another time to let it go here. There you go. That goes down around the cotter pin and down into the came so that can't get out of there. Then I'm going to turn it around. And we're going to do exactly the same thing here. We're just going to put a little solder on our iron. I'm going to just hold it here until it flows away. And there we go, just like that. Okay, so when I come back, I'm going to have knocked these edges down here with the sandpaper and so forth. And then the last thing we're going to do, and the panel will be finished, is we're going to put a little shelf right on the bottom here. And the shelf's going to look like this. It's made out of galvanized tin. It's a real thin product. You get this at the hardware store, and it's going to be soldered right on the bottom of this, like this. But I'll show you a little trick that we need to do to be sure that it doesn't hang over. So when we come back, we'll have this all taken care of and finished up, and we'll go ahead and put our little cleat on the bottom too. All right, we got everything all taken care of. We got it all cleaned up here. You notice here I took and this is the area where we took and filled in, and then we took it on the 80 grit paper, knocked the edges off of it so it finishes up really nice. Here's our hanger right here. It's been soldered all the way around, so that won't be going anywhere. And here's the other side where our 45s come together. Now the last thing we need to do, we need to put this little shelf in here on the bottom here to hold the bottom piece of our project. And we're going to do that. We're going to just take this, we're going to put it up against the ramp right here, up at the top side here, although you can't see that. I'm just going to put a piece of my form up against the top of it and a couple stick pins. But first I'm going to take, I'm going to mark where the center of this is. This is 6 3/4, so that's going to be 3 3/8 is going to be the center part of this. And this doesn't have to be perfect. It can be somewhere close. So we're going to take our little shelf that we made here. This is out of that galvanized tin. And I burnished off a little bit here so it has some nice clean metal. And I'm going to just set this in here all the way down. But keep in mind the U-cane we're using is rounded. It has a round crown on it. So if I were to push this all down all the way and solder it right there, this sharp edge is going to be sticking below the cane. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our marker, just take our marker here, and we're going to mark a line right across the back here on the cane. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take and we're going to raise this up just about 1/8 of an inch above where we marked that line. We're going to push this in real tight, and we'll take our stick pins against the top of it, and we're going to push it down. And then we're going to take our flux, going to put it right here, take our iron. I'm just going to put a little solder on it. Stick it right in here against the shelf and the cane. And just let this flow right down in between it, and that'll get it all tacked on there nice and smooth for us. And that's all there is to putting that together. So we've got one panel done. We'll go offline. I'll make the other two. And when we come back on, we'll put them in our form and go ahead and actually put the lantern together. So hopefully you've been following along, and this has been helpful for you. Okay, well, we're back. We got all 3 of our panels made now, so they came out real nice. So you can see they've all been copper foiled and been soldered on both sides. We've got our cleat here for our plate to hold our solar light. Down at the bottom here, we have a small tab here. This is where we're going to put our bottom in this, because these are center port source lights. So they'll bounce off the bottom and light this whole thing up when we put our lights inside here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to solder these all together. And if you've watched any of my other videos, we're going to use a small jig that I made that holds these on a 60-degree angle. And so we'll get that out and get the soldering iron heated up, and we'll be back and we'll put this together. All right, so we're going to get back. This is the fixture that I made. It's just a small, made out of wood. It's 2 V's that are on 60-degree angles right here, both one front, one back. This one here has a backstop on it so that you can put everything together so it lines up properly. And the way it works is you take your panel and you set it in here on the angle, and then you take your second panel and you set it in here on an angle, and you create a V right here in the middle. And this V area right here, pull this down here so you can see here, this V area right here is where we're going to solder. So we'll solder inside the unit so that we don't see it from the outside. And so we're going to just take our flux, and we're going to put a little bit of flux right here. Flux that up. And we're going to take our soldering iron, and we're just going to come in here, and we're just going to put a little tack solder right here. Just like that. We'll come down here and put one right here. And then down at the end here, you can see that it's created a little bit of a spread. I'm going to take and put a glove on here. And what I'm going to do, I don't want to leave that open there because it'll leave a gap in it. I don't want to have any gaps in it. So I'm going to just take my soldering iron, I'm going to put a little bit of solder on it. And I'm going to reach around here and I'm going to close that up. And then I'm going to put the soldering iron right here and just solder this little gap shut. It'd be probably a good idea if I put some flux down there. I didn't put any down in this area. So just going to pull this up. I use my gloves just because this will get hot real quick. That'll hold it right there. And then we'll go ahead and we'll put a couple more little tacks in here. You don't have to solder this solid. it's not going to go anywhere with all these solder joints in it. Okay, down at the end here, I like to push this forward here. I like to fill this in solid because this is the only area that people can see from the top if they happen to look in there. So we'll just close this up solid. And the way to do that is just to take and run a bead of solder down through it like that. Right to the top here. Okay, to do the other panel, which goes across the back here, we're going to go off camera for a minute, and I'll get a helper, and we'll bring the camera down so we can show you what we're going to do with it and how we're going to do it. All right, we're back. I got my lovely wife to give me a hand here, and she's going to hold this camera down here so we can see how to put the rest of these in here. So we're going to take this one here. We're going to set it up on its 60-degree slot, and we're going to insert this one here underneath here. And I'll take and turn this so you can see what we're doing. We're going to look right in here. This creates another V across the bottom here. So this is the area right here where we're going to solder. So I'm going to just take and add my flux in here. And then I'm going to come through the back side with my solder through the inside here. And we're going to just take and we're going to tack solder it right here. Just like that. Come down here and put another one here. And now way down at the end on the back side here again, I'm going to take and go through the inside. And I'm going to take my soldering iron. I'm going to put a little bubble of solder on it. I'm going to hold this tight down here. I'm going to come down to the end from inside, and I'm going to solder that shut. Just like that. Then we'll push this forward. We'll come back through here. Going to need a little bit longer solder here. Come back through the inside, and we'll solder this one here shut too. You don't really need to do this, but I just like to close that off so it looks nice, because that's the only part that people can really see. After you get that done, you're going to take and rotate it one more time. And you put these two together right here, push them all the way into their stop, and it makes another V. That's going to hold your panels together. We're going to take our flux again. And we're going to go ahead and put the flux in here. Make sure they're down tight. If you don't think it's down tight, take your soldering iron, put a little bubble of solder on it, push it down tight, and then go ahead and set it in here to tack solder that. Because you want to hold it tight so when your seams come through, they don't have any air gaps in them, so that the light will come through and you don't have any solder bleed through on it. Go all the way down to the end again. And we'll go ahead and we'll put a little bubble of solder on our iron. We're going to go down to the end here. We'll go back in here. We'll tack solder that. Come back in here. Give us one more solder joint right about here. And then we're going to push this out again, and we'll finish up these two right here. Make sure we got enough flux here. If you don't put the flux on it, your solder won't flow very nice, and it makes it a little bit harder to get a nice looking job. Okay, so that's all there is to it. So here's our project. Now we've got it all put together. Here's all three sides. So in the next video, I'm going to put a little shelf in here to hold our solar lights. I'm going to cut a piece of glass to go in the bottom here, and we'll just take and attach it to these little tabs with a little bit of silicone glue, and we'll put a chain on it, and we'll get ready to light it up to show you how the project came out. So hopefully you've been following along and have enjoyed the project. Okay, we're back here. We've got all the pieces made up to finish up our solar project. We've got a bottom for it. We've got a shelf to hold our solar lights, which is these three panels here. We've got our chain made up. It's made up of a 5/8 inch split ring, a ball bearing swivel, a 1/2 inch split ring, and about 12 inches of a jack chain. This is a number 16 jack chain. And we've got a little tube of silicone seal to glue the base down. I'm using a mirror for the base because these are single source lights. They go straight down as far as the light goes. That'll give us a nice bounce back, so we'll get good illumination over the whole solar lantern. The top part, several people have asked me about this. I make this out of a cutting board for the quilters, and it's kind of a rubberized plastic. It's easy to work with. You can cut it with a pair of shears. If you don't have anybody that is doing quilting and has an old mat, you probably can ask around and find somebody that they're going to throw one away. So it works very nice. I just take a hole saw, cut open some holes for our light to sit through here. So that's what we're using for that. So we'll move some of this stuff out of the way, and we'll show you what we're going to do here. We're going to take our mirror, and since we want the mirror side facing up, we're going to turn it over, and we're going to drop this down like that. And we're going to take our silicone glue here, and I'm going to put just a little dab right here, a little dab right here. It doesn't take a whole lot. A little dab right there. Then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to insert it inside our lantern, just like that. Pull it down. And I'm just going to catch it with my fingers here and drop it in place. And there it sets in there, just like that. So you can see that it's got some gaps around the inside there, right in this area right here, all the way around. I do that on purpose because these go outside, and it's nice to have them where you can let the little bit of a rain go through them. Take a couple little blocks here and block it up so that you don't move it off there until the silicone seal is dried. If you want to, you can take a small pointer. I just use a piece of our framing material, and I just push this down against the tabs here to help glue it down. I can also take and position my mirror so if it's not quite where I want it, I can move it. So I push that down. So while that's drying, we'll take our top piece right here, and it just sits in here like this. You can take and glue that down if you want to. I usually leave it open in case I want to get inside to clean this if it gets dirty inside. And if we've made these panels the right size, which hopefully we have, they will take 3 of these lights. And so we'll set them in here. They're going to sit in here just like this. So that's exactly what we want it to do. Before we take it in to light it up, we'll pull out these white tabs. They're protecting the battery right now so that it's not being activated. So in order to charge this, these little tabs have to be pulled out also. And they have a photocell in them that will turn this on when it gets dark. And these will probably burn from anywhere from 5-6 hours all the way up. Some of them I've seen burn all night long. So the last thing we need to do, we need to put on our chain. Here again is this is our jack chain, and we're just going to take it's an open loop chain, which means that it's when you open the loop, it looks like that, and we're just going to hook it in here like this. We'll pull up on it. We'll take the center one over here. I usually go from the outside edge in, and we'll take this one here and we'll hook it in here also. And there we go, we got our 3. Let me get this one here. I usually do this when they're hanging up, so it's a little bit easier, but for show and tell, I just want to do it down here. So our hanger's on here. We've got our lights in and we've got our bottom in. So what we're going to do, like we've done in the other videos, we're going to take this into the laundry room. And when we turn the light out in the laundry room, the photocell will think that it's gotten dark and it will come on, and we'll show you what this looks like when it's illuminated. So we'll get ready to take it in there and light it up and let you folks see what all your hard labor how it came out to show you a nice looking solar light. So we'll be right back. All right, so here's our solar light all hanging ready to go. And so at nighttime, here's what it's going to look like. So I hope you've enjoyed the project. Give it a whirl. It's been fun making it. And we'll see you on the next video.